Opinions and ideas expressed in the following Moraine Valley Broadcast Channel recording are those of its creators and do not represent the views of Moraine Valley Community College.
Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Code, where we discuss social issues plaguing today's society. My name is Paul Bochco, and I'm here with
Dea Abdel Salam
and Juan Sanchez.
And today we'll be discussing the fight for 15. So, Juan, what's your viewpoint on this topic?
Well, I'm kind of like at a split decision. Well, I don't agree with people getting paid $15 an hour, but I do agree that people should get paid enough to be able to live off on.
My opinions, I'm totally against the fight for 15. Why? Because there's many other opportunities to go get another job. You can fight for the 15, but at the same point, people are receiving welfare when they're below that 15 poverty.
My viewpoint hasn't changed much, since the beginning of class. Beforehand, I was against it. Doing the research, I learned that a lot of my viewpoints were correct, and if anything, it solidified my overall views on the matter. So, what about the history of it? Do you guys want to tell me a little bit about what this movement came from and how it began?
Well, the movement is there's fast food. Well, it's not only the fast food workers, but people are trying to push the minimum wage to $15 an hour, right? One of their main points is that people who work full time, no matter what job, should earn $15 an hour to be able to live comfortably. That's one of their main points in that.
I can't disagree with that. That's perfectly fair. Everybody feels that, just because you put in your time at the, whatever job you are, you should have a comfortable living. And that's the American dream. People want to be able to have that as, something they can fall back on.
Yeah, definitely. People always want to live the American dream, but if they're receiving below the 15 poverty line, they're receiving medical care, welfare. What other benefits would they need?
Well, if that's the case, then, one of the questions, would be that, $153 billion was spent last year by taxpayers, on welfare programs. Can we say that if we raise the minimum wage that, we won't have to pay all those welfare programs?
Mm-hmm. That's one of the points that I was looking at that has me going towards a little bit raising the minimum wage, not to 15, but a little bit more, because as you said, it's costing us, the taxpayers, $53 billion,
right,
in welfare and all of that. So if we raise the minimum wage, that would eliminate that and will eliminate the cost to us.
I agree with you that it'll eliminate the cost, but do the employees realize that if they're getting a raise, they would have to start paying for welfare, just like all the other taxpayers?
Yeah, one of the things that I looked into was, this study really came out of Berkeley. Doing some research, I found out that study wasn't as completely accurate as one would think. What it took into account was, working families were defined as only people that worked 27 weeks a year and a minimum of 10 hours a week. So at $15 an hour, one would expect to make about $4,050 a year based on those numbers versus only $2,727 at $10.10 an hour. Of course, if you had a brain, anybody would want to make more money for less. Now, the problem is what didn't take into account was what would happen if the wage was actually increased to $15 an hour. People would actually lose their jobs. And according to a Forbes article from 2015, one of the studies that did that number didn't take that into account. And all the positives of removing the welfare were negated by the people that actually lost their jobs. So really, you're not really doing any justice to the economy or even changing any of the welfare up from that by, changing the price point. So, well, that's just one topic. Now, let's talk about something else. What about, like, for example, when the people that are for the fight for 15 say that, places like Denmark and Australia have, higher wages, like $20 or, $15 an hour. They can afford it.
Yeah, totally. They can afford it, but always there's different currencies from America to, like, the U.S. So what they would be getting paid over there is a little bit just more over here, which would be, like, averagely $11.70 an hour. So that's still more than what some minimum wage workers are getting over here.
Yeah, and you got to take into account, it's a different economy. It's not the same. They might be able to afford paying them more I don't know, it's a different country. Well, I don't know a lot about that, so I can't really say that much.
You know what? And that's actually pretty good, opinion from you there, Juan. You know, if you don't know about the matter, don't, talk about it. Don't blow, smoke up, somebody's ass. But, according to another Forbes article, there's a thing called the purchasing power parity. And what that does, it actually takes into account what the economy is and how much money is in the economy and how much, spending you really have. The other thing, for example, in Denmark, they may not have minimum wage per se, but they have union contracts. And in those contracts, it stipulates a minimum wage for workers at a certain age level. So, granted, they do make X amount of money. The problem is because the cost of goods are so much higher over in Denmark, you don't really get as much bang for your buck as you do here in the States. And so what, Dea said was exactly, it's basically like working, making $11.70 an hour here, whereas you're technically making $20. So sure, it's a little bit higher than the fast food workers are making, but not all that much as, everybody would seem. Now, what about, the $4.7 billion in profits that McDonald's made? Isn't that another, topic of conversation?
Well, I agree with you, but it doesn't mean just because they made $4.7 billion of profits that they'd have to pay their employees $15 an hour, because that has nothing to do with them. They're getting paid what they're getting working for.
Yeah, it brings me back to my point where I'm kind of like at a split decision. I think McDonald's should pay their workers a little bit more, not exactly $15 an hour. I was thinking of like the cost of living should be taken into account, like for each city or state, and according to that, they should be able to pay them a little bit more so they can at least, be able to live, buy groceries, all the normal things. I'm not saying like live like comfortably where you can be able to get a whole bunch of other like goods, I don't know, like TVs and stuff, but just enough so you can live.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that one. But like, if you're going to compare a McDonald's worker to a guy who works all day as a police officer, there's a big difference between flipping burgers and being a police officer patrolling. You're having a riskier job, and then there's one where you're just flipping burgers. So as a McDonald's employee or any type of employee, maybe just enough to live comfortably to get your groceries, like you said, Juan. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, because I'm not saying to raise their minimum wage so they could make the same as like police officers or anything else. I'm just saying to raise the minimum wage so they can live above the poverty line,
Definitely.
Sure.
So it eliminates the taxpayer money going to welfare, and they can also be able to buy groceries and stuff like that for their families.
One of the analogies they always say is that, hey, in Denmark or in Australia, you're making a lot more money, and so we can do it here. Well, my question to them now is well, if they're, there's other countries that make less, for example, you have the Philippines or, Mexico.
Yeah.
They make less money. Well, shouldn't we ask them, if they can actually afford to pay their workers less, shouldn't you guys make less too? So it's a, relative topic.
Definitely. Another opinion I had was, why don't they just leave their job and look for a better one?
No, that's a good question, and that's one of the things that you would have to ask each individual worker. Some people love their jobs, and you can't fault them for that. But, whatever the wage is for that position, they shouldn't be arguing it. You're happy with your position. It's not all about the money, right? The other thing, too, is, I was driving through the other day, and I literally saw a sign that says Taco Bell's offering scholarships. You're telling me that, hey, we can't better ourselves? Well, your company's offering you an option to go outside and get some schooling, get a higher paying job. You don't have to be stuck here. So that's definitely something else. There are other opportunities available.
Yeah.
Definitely. Just as you said, they're offering scholarships. What better would you want than that? $15 an hour, you get a scholarship to a educational school that you can go to.
Okay. So let's, get off the couple of viewpoints here. But what do you guys think about the public? Why do they think that the fight for 15 is, the way it is?
Well, I think one of the reasons why people are for it is because of the, how do you say it, like the emotional point of it, or however you call that, like because I mean, they're saying that people that are working like 40 plus hours, that are working full time, they should be able to like live comfortably. So I guess that's one of like the points that the people are like appealing to.
Definitely, I agree with you on that one. But as I said, there's people who bust their ass all day to get their money. There's people who just flip burgers or bag food, not educated. So I believe there's certain sides to that one.
I think in the scope of the the media and everything else, with all the memes out there and so forth, people definitely get, I guess, involved with it, or just, see that certain side, and, it's a McDonald's worker, they laugh it off, haha, whatever. I mean, the fight for 15 has done some good things. I mean, you can't argue that. The workers have won, $16.5 billion in raises from that. So, that's definitely a positive. 19 million people will benefit, you can't argue those numbers, but it's still the fact that rather than going just for a minimum wage increase, they're going for, pretty much double what they're making. So I just can't go with that. So, all right, let's wrap it up here, guys. What's conclusion of all the topics we just talked about? What's your final opinion on this?
My final opinion is you want a better job that gets $15 an hour. Look at what the job's offering you first. Like I said, Paul's seen a Taco Bell who's offering scholarships and you get welfare. What better than when you went with that? That's my opinion. Like, if you're getting benefits, I'd rather stick with that job. If not, I'd move up to $15 an hour.
Mm-hmm. In my opinion, is that minimum wage should be raised a little bit, not to 15 an hour, but enough so people can live above the poverty line and be able to live, exactly.
Yeah, my viewpoint hasn't changed much. I'm still against for the 515, and all this information just solidified my viewpoint a little bit more. Well, that's going to wrap it up, guys. That was another episode of Cracking the Code. Turn in next time to hear another topic.